the broader Web3 market seems to still be in a bit of a winter. What are you seeing happen now?
Never underestimate human greed. My prediction, and we'll see if I'm right or not, but if the Bitcoin ETF probably drives the price of Bitcoin pretty astronomical, actually, because I think that you do have people get interested, people get FOMO, and I think there's not a lot of supply. So therefore, I think that the value goes up, if not immediately, over the next 24 months. Let's say I'm not looking at a 2-week time horizon.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, group chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
All right, this is a historic day, and so we timed this like perfectly with Ian. So Aaron Rodgers, who's been on this podcast many times before, is with Ledger. And when we were planning on him coming on the pod, just because we wanted to check in on the crypto market and what Ledger's been up to, and it just so happened, as we are starting to record, the Bitcoin ETFs get approved by the SEC.
We timed it to the minute. Literally, you guys sat down and you were like, well, they just approved it 10 seconds ago.
And
like,
Ian,
wow.
as soon as they got approved, Ian's in Paris and he
10
opened
p.m.
a
for me.
bottle of Habiki.
Yeah.
I was like, well, we got to toast to this. This thing came back to me from Bright Moments Tokyo. Actually,
nice.
It came with an NFT mint, so it feels appropriate. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Let's drink to the future of digital assets.
And so 11 ETFs have been officially approved. Franklin, Valkyrie, don't know what that is.
Valkyrie,
BlackRock, Grayscale, ARK has one, Bitwise, Fidelity. It's all the big boys.
It's
what is this? Sorry to interrupt, but like for the layman, what does this mean?
It means that anyone with a brokerage account, if you're at Schwab, Fidelity, Robinhood, anyone can buy this now. You don't need to be on Coinbase. You don't need to be on any of these exchanges like Binance. It's basically an ETF that reflects the price of Bitcoin, and Coinbase actually is the custody for the majority of these 11, because you have to own the underlying asset to have an ETF. So the ETF is kind of like a shadow buying of Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's actually a certificate of deposit, if I understand correctly. I don't want to pretend like I know more than I do, but I've been following this, super closely the whole way through. So the interesting thing about it is, as you said, they need to own the underlying asset. So it's not just an index. It's actually, they've got to buy it. They've got to hold it. They've got to own it. And then what you can do is on the exchange, ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. On the exchange, you can buy the asset. So I think this has been underestimated both inside and outside of crypto. Like it's, crypto people have been crazy for it, but some people in the crypto community either kind of poo-poo it or sort of yawn at it. But the reality is that the level of access that this gives to the average investor, I don't want to say average person, because in many ways, Bitcoin has been for the average person since the beginning. Bitcoin has been about kind of non-investors in so many ways, just people who they aren't necessarily quote unquote traders or even, retail investors. They're people that just believe in it for one reason or another. Bitcoin's always favored kind of people who don't believe in the system, in a lot of ways. And now this is a huge validation. Even though the US government is not saying we love Bitcoin, they are saying we can't ignore it. It's an asset that people want to buy. And, let's give them access to it, from the big boys. I mean, there's nobody bigger than the BlackRock, who are basically, the fourth branch of the US government. Right. And, and now anybody can just go into their brokerage account and buy it. I think the part that's underestimated about this is if you look at the last crypto hype cycle, 21, 22, there were a lot of people talking about how, companies were going to start putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet like MicroStrategy does, and how having zero exposure to crypto was suicidal in a way. Like, it's like, look, you've got Bitcoin is unquestionably, and even haters have to admit the statistical truth that it's the best performing asset of the last 10 years, and if you look at its performance, even over the last 12 months, it outperforms anything else. So that same kind of rallying call that people were saying 3 years ago, which is like, you're crazy to have zero exposure to it, right? Like you should at least have 1% of your portfolio, in Bitcoin. And that's kind of moved from 1% to 5% over those years because simply of the performance of the asset. But now if you think about it, where somebody would need to go to Coinbase, KYC, have it in another account, have a separate account for tax purposes, or, in the case of Ledger, you set it up, you're responsible, you've got your 24 words, like, it's a bit of a power user environment compared to, hey, asset manager who's managing my assets. And I love Tesla, I love Apple, but throw some Bitcoin in there. You know what I mean? And it just goes in the same bucket with everything else. And you can kind of move it in and out the same way you do the rest of what you do. And so that ease and that, like, why not take 1%? I don't even have to do anything that I don't normally do when I, buy the S&P or buy Tesla, buy Intel, whatever. It's just right there as an asset next to it. Now, like, the other thing that's interesting, I think, is ETFs are like, there's an ETF for everything. Yeah. There's an ETF for, like, what is it? I love the one that's like the anti-Kramer ETF, right? It's an ETF that just buys the opposite of. So it's not actually that innovative. It's just the SEC saying, okay, we can no longer say no. And I think that's the other thing that's worth noting is, like, that is exactly how we got here. And for me, it's important because, as you guys have heard me say before, when I took a look at Bitcoin, as the guy who lived through Napster and Nutella, in 2009, I looked at Bitcoin and was like, well, the governments won't let this thing live. Right. I was like, oh, this will never live. And that really was the case. The Bitcoin, the SEC was just denying Bitcoin ETFs without looking at them until they got sued by Grayscale and they lost. And that was what triggered this whole thing. So Grayscale went to battle and said, you guys are approving an anti-Kramer ETF and you won't approve a Bitcoin ETF? Like, something's upside down in the universe. Like, seriously, what's going on? And so they were really forced into it. And as soon as they did, it's not like the people on that list you just mentioned, BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK Invest, et cetera, are idiots. They were like, oh man, the SEC just lost the fight. They're going to have to actually look at a Bitcoin ETF on its merits. And in that case, it gets approved. And this guy, Eric from Bloomberg, has been doing the best reporting over the past however many months. The guy's incredible, super worth following, both on Bloomberg and on Twitter. And he's had this thing called from the beginning. And the way that he put it was, as soon as we saw BlackRock was in the race, our odds on a Bitcoin ETF went from 1% to 50% immediately. Right. And so that's what's unfolded over the past 6 months. And it's just, I think it's a bit of a sleeper. I think even if, we don't know, I don't even have my phone in front of me. What's happening to the Bitcoin price on this?
So Ethereum's actually rallying the most. Ethereum hit 2,500 because now the expectation there's an Ethereum ETF coming. So
there's an old adage in trading: buy the rumor, sell the news. So Bitcoin had their run up in anticipation of this, had a monster year. So now everyone's
Ethereum's up 11% in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, that sucks. I put a buy in order. I tried yesterday and my bank changed hands and I didn't have access to my account yesterday. So I was trying to buy Bitcoin yesterday and I ended up buying today, but the money won't transfer until tomorrow. I'm going to buy tomorrow at a premium. I got to cancel that.
It's going to be interesting to see the demand of these 11 ETFs.
Exactly.
When do they actually go live?
Tomorrow.
So tomorrow you can buy them.
You can go on your Schwab account or whatever brokerage account. Your private wealth manager.
That's what we don't know.
You're hoping 10 million people tomorrow put in $100 order and then boom, $1 billion.
If you were to think even with our parents, if our dad was alive today, he was super interested in Bitcoin, but didn't want to technologically figure it all out.
Yeah.
If he was alive tomorrow, he's calling Merrill and saying, I need exposure.
Yeah, put 50 grand.
100% he would have.
Yeah.
There you go. And when you spread that across, the question is like, how much does that drive in terms of inflows, and I think, and then remember that, there is an absolute limited supply of Bitcoin, and the people who hold it aren't willing to sell at this point at basically any price, because this is the moment they've been waiting for. And they, and if you look at like the amount of Bitcoin that has, moved over the amount, it's over the last however many months, it continues to dwindle, so people are holding, they're holding tight. People accumulated during the downturn, and the people that accumulated are believers, and they're believers in the long term. So you got a bunch of people walking in wanting to buy, and then you at 45, even 50,000, and you're going to have a bunch of people shaking their heads going, nah, I'm good. I'll wait for 200. Let's talk about it at 200. So I think you could have short term. I mean, there are a lot of people calling a kind of sell the news event, like you said, because oftentimes these ETFs get overhyped, and then the first week inflows are not that big, and people go, oh shit, we better move out. But if you're looking at like a 24-month time horizon, there's just no question in my view. You look at just simple supply and demand, and number go up. That it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, if BlackRock's getting involved, they're a $9 trillion asset class or asset manager, which would be the third biggest country of GDP in the world after US and China. So the demand that their clients are telling them, we need access to it. We're not going to go on Coinbase. We're not going to go on Binance. We need exposure. That was the biggest, like you said, it went from just 1% to 50% odds of the ETF.
Odds, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious.
And that's the other thing, is that you've got to look at that as a sales force. I was with a friend in Talent on Monday morning, and he was like, I'm not that excited about the ETF. I'm not convinced it's going to do that much. I said, I think it is. And I'll tell you why, because of talking to my business manager in LA. That's why, because, he's a financial advisor for individuals in Los Angeles, mostly works with the entertainment business, a lot of writers and, people that are, kind of Hollywood working class. Right. And, he has tried to help many of his clients get into it, but it's tough for them and for him, right? It's tough to navigate, and it's a new tool. So when he can just use the tools that are already at his exposure to buy for them, it's no longer like somebody's like, hey, I want to get some Bitcoin. And he's like, I don't know. Let me see. I'm not sure it's such a good idea, but man, if you really want to, I can do it. Right. It's like, it's actually becomes the opposite. Hey man, why don't you take a 1% position in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like the flip. If you think about all of those financial advisors as effectively, sales associates for buying exchange traded products, which is really what they are, right?
Yeah.
Then you just unleashed a sales force on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think what people don't realize is if you look at the S&P 500, most of the dollars that retail has invested in is through ETFs. That is where the money flow actually goes. So like when you want exposure to the S&P 500, you don't buy the 500 stocks. You just buy the ETF.
Index. Whether it's a Russell 2000.
Yeah, any index you just get exposure to via ETFs. Have they announced the cost structure of these ETFs yet?
It's like, I think like 0.3% fee.
It's 0.2. It's been a battle all week, and it was clear from the beginning that BlackRock was going for blood. BlackRock announced a 0.3 with a 0.2 kind of preliminary, and everybody had to adjust and match that. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe BlackRock lowered it to 0.25 over the last 24 hours. Everybody's resubmitted. And I mean, everybody's acknowledging that these guys are selling this thing at below cost because there's a huge first mover advantage here. These are, I think, generally a winner take all type of thing, right? So you got 11 horses running out of the gate at once. And in the beginning, they compete on price, and later they compete on liquidity. And then what they'll do is they'll, want their price is super low and they get people in at that price. And ultimately they're going to go to the custodian, in this case, probably Coinbase, and be like, okay, lower your price or we'll take our business somewhere else for the custody. Right.
Yeah.
So, they're probably, if you look at that price, man, it's actually cheaper than buying Bitcoin on Coinbase.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
cheaper.
It is cheaper for sure. But then the counter is that Coinbase still is the plumbing for the masses, because the people that buy on Coinbase are probably more technologically savvy than anyone that's buying an ETF, and they want to trade in and out.
It'll be for the sexier products. That's what Coinbase will be.
Well, it's also
derivatives or.
I'm biased, obviously, because I have a position in Coinbase from 10 years ago, that Coinbase now, with crypto becoming mainstream asset class that all the big boys in the financial markets now want to own, they have a chance to become like a FANG.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I think there's no question. Okay, Ledger is a harder to use product than an ETF. Coinbase, is a harder to use product than an ETF, and maybe, as we just said, more expensive. Yeah. But look, if Jamie Dimon or Elizabeth Warren want to talk about Bitcoin is for drug dealers, well, and every good drug dealer knows the first hit is free, right? So, Bitcoin ETF, Ethereum ETF, that is the definition of a gateway drug. I mean, how do people come to Ledger? They get some value, they get more educated, they fall down the rabbit hole of digital assets generally, and that's where they're going to come to a Coinbase, to a Ledger. There's so much more to do in this space, and this is it, man. Like, the fundamentals of Bitcoin are mind blowing. Like, what I hope is that more people end up reading like Lynn Alden's Broken Money. I hope every single person who listens to your pod reads Broken Money this year. It's so good. And I would love to hear from somebody who reads it and isn't affected philosophically, isn't like, wow, okay, like, I'm 51 years old and, educated and have lived a life and run companies and made money. And I learned a lot from that book. I'm almost embarrassed how much I learned from that book, but it teaches us the fundamentals of the history of, what is money? What is value? How does our monetary system work? How has it worked for the past 150 years? Why is it that sort of technology drove us off the gold standard, 100 and some years ago? And why is it that having, a store of value that isn't inflatable and is decentralized and moves at the speed of modern technology has value to humans, right? This is where, like, when Jamie Dimon says that Bitcoin has no value, honestly, it's the most disingenuous thing I've ever heard in my life. It is the equivalent of a music business executive saying that, we'll sell compact discs forever and digital music is not something consumers want. It's like, it's that stupid, because a store of value, which is decentralized and not inflatable by any government and moves at the speed of modern technology, is extraordinarily value. It has intrinsic value to humanity. And that's what this ultimately is, a gateway drug to. Right. Because people might buy it because they think, oh shit, I mean, if I don't, maybe I'm going to get screwed. Like, they're just trying to buy the hot thing because their friends are buying it or whatever. But if they happen to look under the hood, it's so much more interesting than looking under the hood at any other equity they could buy. So much more interesting. And so that's a question. That's what happens.
Let me just, before the question, let me just add it. I think what Jamie Dimon's doing is more than disingenuous. He's a double agent, because JP Morgan, of all the big banks, is the most innovative in crypto. Of all the top 5 banks, JP Morgan's partnered with BlackRock on this ETF. So,
well, he's not going to not make money.
He's going to make money, but why even do the interview? Just, hold your ego, because he's been dishing it. Like, even Larry Fink, the BlackRock head, he's been shitting on Bitcoin for 5-6 years. And then he even came out this year and was like, I give up. Like, we need to have it.
Yeah.
I think I think that the Jamie Dimon thing is exactly the music business. I remember those music business executives who were like, oh no, we're going to sell compact discs forever. And they knew it was a lie. What they were really saying was, can we just hold this thing at bay until I retire?
Yeah.
Right. It was like Jack Welch knew that GE had become like a financial company that wasn't, sustainable. He just had to pass the problem on to the next guy. I think Jamie Dimon just wants to hold this off. Like, he knows that the losers at the end of the day are the banks, and he just wants to hold it off, as long as he can during his tenure. That's my take.
Yeah.
Right.
So I agree. And I think it'll all play out pretty quickly, because this is going to expedite kind of engagement by the banks, because the money will start flowing.
Exactly.
I have a question. So this is obviously a momentous kind of step. What impact do you think it has for the broader kind of Web3 market? Because outside of, let's call it Bitcoin and Ethereum, the broader Web3 market seems to still be in a bit of a winter. There was so much excitement around NFTs and some of the other things that were happening. What are you seeing happen now? Like, do you see are people still excited about that? Have they moved on from that? Is there something new?
So what I think that there's two separate things I'd look at. One, never underestimate human greed, right? So I think what'll happen is my prediction, and we'll see if I'm right or not, but if I can make a prediction, I think that the Bitcoin ETF probably drives the price of Bitcoin pretty astronomical, actually, because I think that you do have people get interested, people get FOMO, and I think there's not a lot of supply. So therefore, I think that the value goes up, if not immediately, over the next 24 months. Let's say I'm not looking at a 2-week time horizon. I'm looking at a 24-month time horizon. So I think the price increases significantly as more people try to come in. I think to your point about Ethereum is like second in line. It's kind of considered, number 2 in the class. And, if it starts to move in the same direction, people will rotate, from one to the other. They feel like maybe they missed some of the run up on Bitcoin, and they move into Ethereum. But people get flush with cash, maybe because they made a lot on Bitcoin. Maybe also people just think like, wow, this crypto thing is hot, but I missed the boat on Bitcoin. That's what they'll think. It's not true, by the way. Don't fall for that. I'll just give you my strategy. I buy Bitcoin every week. I always do. And I just keep going. It's not a bad strategy. It's proven to be a great strategy for many, many, many people over the last 15 years or let's say 10 years of people really DCAing. And, it's a good strategy going forward. So what I would recommend is don't trade. You're likely is you're going to get wrecked unless it's your full-time job and you're lucky and a genius. You're going to get wrecked. Buy and hold. That's actually the right thing to do. But what will people do? They'll gamble. People like to gamble. Don't never underestimate human greed. I also think you have some other really, really interesting stories. Just as an example, Solana is a crazy interesting story. Right after FTX crashed, Solana felt like it was down and out and over. The community really rallied. They really built something. Now they are, really a number 3. They're like holding their ground, and the assets appreciated a lot, but a lot of people think it's going to still double over the next year. And whether it does or not, you got to give the community like a tremendous amount of credit for sticking with it, for rallying, for having an amazing product. I still think it's more like an equity, but still, that's part of what you're asking, this broader crypto community. And then there are incredibly interesting things, projects like Thorchain and DYDX. Like, people continue to innovate. Like, so the innovation will come. It's like the internet. It's not over once the internet's unleashed. It's just the starting gun went off. Right. Yeah. Now, on NFTs and whatnot, I actually think that will take a longer time, because to me, that's exactly like what we experienced in 1998 and 99, when everyone thought that the internet was going to come tomorrow. And there were all these great ideas, like, there was this, I can't remember, what was it called? Cosmo, that was like the immediate delivery. I can tell you exactly when it happened, because I bought the D'Angelo Voodoo CD, and it came to my office in like 30 minutes. And so whenever Voodoo came out was exactly when that service was alive. And you had things like Digital Entertainment Network, which was streaming video, and they all went bust, and everybody laughed at them, and they were on fuckcompany.com, but they were all the right idea. They're all things that we all use every day today, but they were just literally 12 years too early. Right. Yep. And so I think a lot of the stuff that we, talked about in the summer of 21, beginning of 22, when it came to NFTs, is all also correct, but kind of 12 years too early. So I think what you get next is you get a lot of applications which kind of acknowledge digital ownership. I think video games probably leads. And then you get things like what Yancey Strickler from Kickstarter is doing at MetaLabel, where they're building something which is very much about digital ownership, but it's not a Web3 product at all. It's a Web2 product that kind of has concepts of digital ownership underneath. And then 10 years from now, it'll be very much about digital ownership, but we'll live in a really different world, like as different as 2000, no iPhone, 2010 iPhone. You know what I mean? Like we're going to live in a world that's that different. Right. So, and so I think that digital ownership is the actual innovation. Digital ownership is real. This is why I buy digital art. I buy generative art because I see it as an art form that is undervalued today relative to the way that, the generation of tomorrow will value it, because the generation of tomorrow, digital ownership will be just a normal part of their lives, like digital photos are a part of our lives today. And therefore, like pioneers of, digital ownership and digital art will be respected. That to me is like kind of an obvious thing, but I don't think that happens this summer. I think that happens, 10 years from now, and we're in kind of that 2002, but it doesn't change society until 2012. And I think that's what happens. But I think there's tons of opportunities and money to be made all along the way, right? I sold a company to AOL in 99, to Yahoo in 2003, and to Apple in 2014. You got to find the ways to, I didn't wait till 2012 to find a way to get monetize. Some, to get some value out of the growth, so you got to figure that out all the way up. So that I think is what people have to do.
I think in the near term, what the ETF kind of reflects and represents of how people want to deal with crypto is the masses don't actually want to deal with crypto, but they want crypto to be a part of their asset portfolio. So like, for example, I'm an investor in my friend Amit game. The company's called Proof of Play. His game's called Pirate Nation. He created Farmville. And the game that he just released, the user doesn't know it's on the back end is all crypto. But the back end is all built on the Ethereum blockchain because it's more efficient, fast, easier for users to play. But the user that's on Pirate Nation has no idea that crypto's the plumbing behind the whole game.
Yeah.
And I think that is the near term. When people always say, what's the use case of all these different tokens? It's that the user won't know they're actually integrating, using crypto or interacting with crypto, but that's actually what's happening in the background, and their game's going quite fast. And I think you're going to see a lot of other products where the average user won't know crypto's behind it.
Yeah, and imagine that you could just go on an exchange and trade something from the game for Bitcoin, right? I mean, that's where this goes, right? I mean, I've got all these I've got all these credit card points, and one day my account got hacked. This is a couple of years ago, and somebody my business manager called and said, did you order like 5 laptops? I was like, no, I didn't. Because that's just somebody trying to trade those credit card points for, something close to real value, right? So once these things have their own ecosystems and economies, but then you can trade across them. In other words, like you look at MetaLabel. MetaLabel is about it's basically, you think of it like a more horizontal Bandcamp. Right. So Bandcamp, you can buy music direct from artists. With MetaLabel, you buy projects direct from artists, right? Could be a book, kind of a digital book, could be a piece of music, could be anything. Yeah. But right now that will all be kind of just exactly the same way you said. I buy it. It's like buying something on Bandcamp. It lives in Bandcamp, right? I can download the MP3s, or I can come back to Bandcamp and download it later. Same thing for MetaLabel today. But in the future, I'll say, hey, I actually don't want this thing to live inside a MetaLabel anymore. I want to move this thing out to the Ethereum blockchain, where I've got the rest of my goods, my art, my, and whether that's Solana or Ethereum eventually might be, or or the Solana or Ethereum of tomorrow might be irrelevant actually, right? It's wherever all of my stuff is. Like where do I plug into? Where do I log into? And that's so different than the world we have today. I don't know if you've been hearing all these stories. I was listening to like a Wall Street Journal podcast about, people getting stolen phone, and it's not just the stolen phone. The phone then gets hacked, and they don't just get hacked and then someone like spends some of your money. It's like they steal your iCloud account. And you can never get it back, which is mind blowing. I actually heard this story right after having dinner with a friend who lost his iCloud account forever. And even as somebody who's like in the security business, worked at Apple, I was like, wait, what? Like there's really no way to get it back. I was kind of surprised, to be honest. Yeah.
But so you lose all your photos, everything.
When everything is in this one place, right? And that you can't control. In fact, like the tools to control it aren't even really in your hands, so that's where this future where there's a layer of abstraction that's away from the company that you're dealing with right now, becomes so interesting. This sort of that's one layer of abstraction. Yes, I'm dealing with you, company, game company, Apple, Bandcamp, whoever. But when I buy something from you and it's digital, which many things in my life are, I can move it away. Last night, what happened to me? A funny story. I went to pick up our 9-year-old's bike and I rode the bike home. But me riding a 9-year-old's bike means that my knees are like in my chest. Yeah. And so my wallet fell out of my pocket, which I didn't realize till this morning. My wallet's gone. And the thought I had was, I'd rather lose my ledger, right? Because with my ledger, I had my 24 words. I just, boom, it like instantly comes back. My wallet, I'm like, oh my God, like every hoop I have to jump through to get back everything that was in my wallet.
Yeah.
And so that's
why
you
couldn't do your Bitcoin purchase. You lost your wallet.
Well, this is another story. This is because HSBC France sold to CCF. Like that's a different story. But welcome to 2024. But a world of digital ownership is a different world. That's my point. Yeah. The world we live in today has relatively little digital ownership. Like when it says like log in with Google or log in with iCloud, it's asking like, who owns your ass? Right? Yeah. Who owns which login which big company owns you? Right. Yeah. But there is, I think Bitcoin ETF doesn't represent that at all, by the way, except that it's that gateway drug, because in the Bitcoin ETF, it's still Charles Schwab or whoever, who owns you. Right. But again, that's why for me,
curious.
My hope is that like if people double click on Bitcoin, they're going to find something completely different than just, like this asset to invest in. And that's, it's quite real, like it's the only thing I've ever seen that like the longer I stare at it, the more beautiful it is. And, there's no way I'm the only person that's going to discover that.
And if you think about it also, how quickly it happened. So the white paper was 2008. Everyone said it was a scam. And it's only been 15 years. Yep. And now you have this transformational technology and now financial asset class that was birthed only 15 years ago. That's what's fascinating.
By the way, you know what? Okay, let me tell you a story. I was living in Topanga Canyon and I had a TV that some friends gave me and I hooked it to a computer. And this was like 1998. And I was like, wow, okay, in the future, everybody's going to watch TV on their computer, Like this is it. This is how you'll get, because I was downloading movies, from like they were actually like, Wares servers at the time. It was like pre-BitTorrent even. Yeah. But then, so I remember when that was, and then I remember in the future, my mom called and said, I got rid of my cable subscription and I got a Roku. And I looked at the calendar and I was like, how long did that take? And it was 15 years.
Yeah.
It was 15 years. This keeps coming back for me. So I wrote this tweet a while back where I did the math and I was like, okay, how long is this actually going to take? Like, let's say that 2021 is when we thought this like digital ownership, MP3s, Atom Bomb Squad, that we thought that was all going to, VFriends, we thought that was all going to happen in 21, right? Okay. So when's it really going to happen? All right, well, I'm going to go with 12 to 15 years. And the way I looked at it was, I was like, okay, there's this great article about it's called What Happened in 2012. I linked to it in my tweet, and it's crazy when you read it because there's all these like consumer indicators that started to change in 2012, like the way people eat, the way people travel, like depression, like all these like crazy things that were 2012 was a mile marker. And it makes sense. Like 98, 99 was when we thought it was going to happen and we overshot it and we had a crash. And then you go through kind of like Google, MySpace, Facebook, iPhone, Uber, you got to like step through all these phases. And then, iPhone was 2008, 2012, you've had like, 6 years of Facebook and 4 years of iPhone, and you start to see it in the numbers when you look at society, right? Okay. So I want to give you one more thing, because this is closer to the world you spent your life in, D. I was talking to someone about Golden Goose. And I think, roughly speaking, and I think these are wrong, but rough numbers, right? First 12 to 15 years, Alessandro got that business to, let's say, 15, 20 million in revenue. Yeah. And now 15-ish years later, it's, 500, 600 million in revenue. So I think there's another thing. I think pretty much anything has to grind out that first 15 years, right? Yep. To be a thing, to be a brand, to show that it's real, to not die, to like 15 years, I think is a kind of a magic number. Like if you're out there starting a brand right now and you aren't buckled up for 15 years, don't bother. Yeah. Go home. Yeah. Like you're not going to make it.
I agree. I mean, I think that goes across almost anything and everything that you do in life. Even if you just think about, obviously starting a business, it just takes time. People underestimate time as an important part of the equation when building things. And even if you look at companies like Microsoft and Apple, the most value that they've created after 40 years of existence is the last 18 months.
Right.
Like you could have missed Microsoft and Apple for 40 years. Yep. Well, then if you were invested the last 18 months, you made a fortune.
Yeah. And people forget that, Apple started when? Like, I don't know, what was it? 79? I don't know.
79, I think. Yeah.
I don't even know. Like in 2002, Apple had less than 2% market share, right? And it was a $10 stock. Like people forget, history gets rewritten all the time, right? I remember talking to, Steve Berman at Universal, because I was on the call when introduced Steve to Dior and Louis Vuitton about help me out. Damn, I'm getting old.
But just for context, in my age, people that listen, Steve Berman is famous on many Eminem records from 20 years ago.
Come on, her brother's Phineas, and she's huge, and she just was
Billie
on Saturday Night
Eilish.
Live. Billie Eilish. I had the wrong name in my head, and I couldn't get it out.
Okay.
Senior moment. And so he was, but that was what he said. He said his opening line is so good. He's like, yeah, we got this little overnight sensation we've been working on for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's such a good line, because that's the case. Like anytime you've ever thought somebody happened overnight, I promise you're wrong. I promise. Sure. It's just because you didn't know the first 7 years. Like that's, that's the reality.
I'm experiencing right now with my business Ghost, where a lot of people in the industry is like, man, you guys are going so fast. And I'm like, motherfucker, I've been doing this for 21 years. The business is not going fast. It's we're going fast because of all the work we put in.
Exactly. And by the way, you just weren't paying attention until now.
Exactly.
That's the answer. Yeah,
exactly. I wanted to end on updates about Ledger. I know you guys have been in the news a lot for the last, year and a half. What are some exciting things out of Ledger happening?
Well, so we've had, last year, the hardest thing is we had our device stacks that we launched last year, designed by Tony Fadell, that has not shipped to customers yet because of yield on this screen. So Tony designed this one-of-a-kind screen. The device is incredible everything about it. We're at version 1.4 of the firmware. The yield, coming out of the factory is 99%, but the screen has been super challenging because it is this one of a kind curved e-ink display. So that's been, part of the reason that we've been in the news. But the nano device business that we have is still great, thankfully. The transactions and services business that we have, which is where you buy crypto, you swap crypto, you stake crypto to earn yield, and you can buy, absolutely everything. You can swap absolutely everything. You can, you can really do anything you want to with digital assets. To come back to our earlier conversation, when you go, further down from just sort of, buying exposure to an asset, and you really want to explore the full world of digital assets, then you want self-custody. And if self-custody, then you need security, then you need ledger. So, that business, continues to be amazing for us. And we also are trying to bring that self-custody to more people. We launched a product called Ledger Recover, which is seed phrase backup and recovery. So part of the reason that, some people are hesitant about self-custody is they are nervous of what happens if I, lose the device, I lose the seed phrase. And if you lose both of those things, you can lose your value. So we built a service that allows you to do self-custody, but have a backup of that. What we do is we take your recovery key, we shard it into 3, we put it with 3 custodians. So actually no one has the one backup, but you can recover it. And then we through the partner CoinCover that we work with on the custody, will guarantee up to 50,000 in loss. 99% of people have 50,000 or less, on their in their crypto account. So they're really covered in case there's something goes wrong with the backup. So bringing self-custody to more people. So that's what we've been doing over the past year. We're constantly doing things that are important to whatever community you might be in. Deeper support for a particular coin, a particular chain, a particular application. And then next year is really more of the same. We've already, despite stacks not being released, we haven't slowed down on our hardware roadmap. So we know what the future of hardware is with both stacks and beyond. Our transaction services business is incredible. We have buy, sell, swap, stake, lend, a credit card, et cetera. That business is incredible. I mean, if you're in the Ledger universe, there's nothing you can't do. And you do it in your hand securely. And, when I say in your hand, as they say, not your keys, not your coins. So you're really doing it in a self-sovereign way. And then, this year it's, when I say more of the same, Ledger's been around for 10 years. We've been saying the same thing for 10 years. We believe that digital assets play a bigger role in our lives tomorrow than they did yesterday. We think not your keys, not your coins. You need to be in control. We use a secure element, which is the same chip that's in your credit card. It's in your passport. The chip in your passport protects the secrets of the government. The chip in your credit card protects the secrets of the bank. The chip in your ledger protects your secrets. That's important. I think the way that the world is moving, having the ability to be in control is super important. And what we want to do is to try to give you the best user experience possible while giving you those things. So we're heading into another big bull market. And what you'll see lots of people who are willing to sacrifice either security or self-custody or both. And what they'll say is, well, it's got to be easier to use. Okay. And then we end up where we did with Mt. Gox, where we did with FTX, where we did with, so many hacks and other things. There are people that are trustable in the market. We have great people like Coinbase and Kraken, et cetera. But, every time people fall for shit that isn't trustable, it's predictable, every time. So we want to be kind of like a bellwether in that. And that's why the other thing, is, on a call with a great, Web3 company tonight, because what we're talking about is this issue of clear signing. There was a hack in December. Somebody found a way to change the code that is in the front end of wallets. And then, if you were using third-party wallets, there's a whole kind of supply chain between the application that you're using and, the front end that you see, and somebody basically, a man in the middle attack, got in there and could change what it was that you were doing to be something that you didn't want to do, because what you thought you were doing was completing some transaction in a Web3 environment, and what you were actually doing was sending your value to a hacker's wallet. Now, if you could look at your device and see what it was you were signing, then you would be alerted to that when it happens. So we've kind of, we've let people blind sign. You have to turn it on as a feature, but it's become the norm in Web3, and it's like unsafe sex. It's fine till it's not.
Yeah.
It's even fun till it's not. Right. And so we're just saying, like, nah, you're not going to do this with Ledger devices anymore. We're going to make it so if I'm signing a contract, I need to be able to read what it is I'm signing clear. That's the whole point. Ledger has a secure screen, so you can look at a screen you can trust and see what the contract you are signing says. So that's a big thing for us this year. And we have a bunch of other features I shouldn't, spill the beans on yet, but a bunch of other things coming this year. So it's great. It's our 10th anniversary. And
wow,
great.
Congratulations. We're kind of doing the same thing we were doing 10 years ago, believing in digital assets and pushing ease of use without compromising on security and self-custody.
That's amazing, man. Well, congratulations. And obviously great to have you on this like epic day.
Great timing.
Incredible. It's good. Yeah. It really is. I mean, and by the way, the part we didn't mention was like how crazy the week has been with yesterday, the SEC account getting hacked.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you see the tweet from Edward Snowden where she just said, Edward Snowden's like, Jesus Christ, get your shit together, Gary.
He said that?
He said that. And then his follow-up tweet was, you had one job.
Yeah. It's all been very entertaining, but it's here. I'm excited to see week one inflows be like how many retail Joes are calling their asset manager
even high net worth individuals who have private wealth managers at all the big banks. Who's calling someone that owns has $100 million in Goldman, are they going to be like, hey, I need $1 million in crypto? Yeah. Or Bitcoin, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, if people start to move kind of 1%, the numbers get real big real fast, and there's not a lot of supply. I think though that just for your listeners, like Raoul Pal has had a lot of good takes on this. I sent you one earlier, D, but another one of his, he's like, look, yeah, sure. Whether it's priced in or not is irrelevant. Like, you've still got time to front run all the people that are going to buy over the next 24 months. You still, that's what you should really keep your eye on.
Asset investor standpoint, people I was listening to a Charlie Munger interview recently, and if you they timed Apple so well. Like, everyone thought
they were late. Everyone thought that they were late. It was 2018.
Yeah, and
you said the company started in 1979.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree. I don't think you're ever too late.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, for something like this, I mean, again, what I would say is, if I could give, honestly, I said it earlier, but I couldn't stress it enough. Don't run out and buy Bitcoin. Run out and buy Broken Money. Spend 2 weeks reading Broken Money. You got 2 weeks. Yeah. Read it. Just see what your conviction is after you read that book. I'm super curious to know what your conviction is after you read that book.
Yeah.
I mean, which is also, do your own research. Don't listen to me. Yeah. Don't listen to some fucking talking head on Fox Business. Go read, or pick some others. Go read the Bitcoin Standard. Go read Fiat Standard. Go read
the white paper.
Go read the white paper. Go read The End of the World is Just the Beginning by Zehan, who hates Bitcoin. You know, I read that book and I want to buy Bitcoin. Sorry, Zehan. But yeah, do your own research.
Yeah. I like that. Amazing. Right. Thank you, sir. Hopefully I'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week in person.
I know it's 10 p.m. You're not sleep or 10:30 now at this point. You're not sleeping tonight.
No, I'm just reloading the price page.
All right, man.
I'll see you next week.
All right, that was an incredible interview with our good friend Aaron Rodgers. We're going to get into some news and send you off into the weekend. First big news is Anand's favorite show, the Pat McAfee Show, dropped your boy.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers has been forcibly removed from the Pat McAfee Show.
So I think we talked a little bit about this, but just to kind of recap the timeline of events. Aaron Rodgers went on he goes on every Tuesday during the NFL season.
Yeah.
And he gets paid 7 figures to do so. 1 hour a week for 14 weeks. Not a bad gig.
Yeah.
And he just FaceTime so he could be anywhere.
Yeah. He just talks nonsense, shit, whatever. Yeah, it's stupid.
And so he made a comment last Tuesday saying, Jimmy Kimmel is going to be doesn't want the Epstein list to be released because we're all waiting. We've seen deposition, but the list hasn't been released. And Jimmy Kimmel and Aaron Rodgers have had this battle over the last 3 years over COVID, vaccine, Epstein, that the list even exists. Kimmel made fun of Rodgers thinking that there was a list, but now there is a list. And then Kimmel went on a 7.5 minute monologue, just destroying him. He's a comedian. He's got writers. Yeah. So, it's pretty funny and, pretty, like it was a dagger for sure. And then Rodgers comes back the next day. It was funny that happened the day before. Yeah. So the Kimmel monologue was the first show of 2024 and on Monday. He goes on McAfee Tuesday and just 50 straight minutes about Kimmel, about COVID, vaccine information. I don't want to litigate any of what he says, but he just went on for 50 minutes. It must have caused chaos amongst ESPN executives because Jimmy Kimmel is one of the biggest talents on Disney, ABC, and Rodgers is just destroying him. And he calls out the head of production for ESPN. So 50 straight minutes dissing everything.
He went. I'm
scorched earth.
He's like, I'm rich. What do I care?
Yeah. I think between all his contracts and the one he currently has, he would have made $400 million.
Don't forget, he was on TV, every TV commercial for a decade.
Yeah. So he might have made $500 million. Yeah. At this point.
So he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit. And he's been dragged through the mud from the media. Yeah. And
I'll tell you this. He just set himself up to probably be one of the biggest media personalities. He's blockbuster.
He is. And I'll tell you, I don't agree with everything he says for the most part, on a lot of these issues. But he's very intelligent. Yeah. You can't take that away from him. No. And he's very articulate.
Berkeley guy.
Well, that's what one of Jimmy Kimmel's discs was you're a JUCO, you didn't graduate Berkeley, and then you're concussed because you played in the NFL. Yeah. And you can have your opinion. I don't want to talk about COVID, and it's just fascinating how much of disruption Pat McAfee has had on ESPN. Yeah. So then today on the Pat McAfee Show, he opens it up saying, "This is the last episode Rodgers will be on for the rest of the NFL season. And I don't want my show to be in the media for this reason." Yeah. He goes, "I want this to be a sports show where you have us. We joke around. Yeah. We try to stay positive. We try to, he didn't diss Rodgers. No. But he's basically like, it's gone too far.
Yeah, his distance.
It's gone too far. Yeah. And I'm sure he'll be back next season. Yeah. But
who did they bring on? They brought someone else on, right? They signed someone else new?
Not signed. Phil Mickelson was on.
Oh, yeah. So they say, is he the new Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know. Yeah. And it's just just think about it. Forget the sports angle. Just from a business perspective, how executives at one of the largest media companies in the world, Disney, how they had to navigate this. So
that's the problem. This is why they're morons. Everyone at Disney. This is Blockbuster. Who cares? If I was running ESPN, I'd be like, fuck it. Give Aaron Rodgers 2 hours. All that matters in this business is ratings. Nothing else. Yeah. I would say, Aaron Rodgers, Go fucking nuts.
I mean, think about every text
I haven't
thread.
turned on ESPN in 10 years. I turned on this morning. I didn't know what time Pat McAfee Show was on. I turned it on at 5 a.m. So I thought maybe there's like it was obviously not on. It was like Get Up or whatever. But like.
Gotta get up 5 a.m.
Yeah. But like, are these people such pussies they can't get made fun of?
I think it was just the egos of the executives, because the week before, Pat McAfee torched one of the executives, called him a rat.
Yeah.
And then Rodgers torches one of the executives, and then they're torching Jimmy Kimmel, who's one of their biggest stars.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know what to do. But to your point,
who cares?
From a content perspective, this is what Barstool thrives on.
Yeah.
This
Chaos.
kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
And in the world we're at, like Stephen A. Smith right now, he's filming a podcast I saw on Twitter calling Jason Whitlock a fat bastard.
Yeah.
And Jason Whitlock took some shots on him.
Well, that's what people want.
And then he's like, I'm going after that fat bastard on this podcast. Tune in.
Yeah, because here's what they don't realize is we want the fuckery.
Yes.
The number one, like, okay, the college national championship was Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it set it up 29 million viewers at the peak were watching it. So pretty big ratings. How many people watched Shannon Sharp and Cat Williams? 50 million?
33 million on YouTube.
That was, I think
YouTube.
33 million was like day 3.
And if you clip it, you're talking 200 million people.
Yes. Okay.
If you look at
Let
the
me
clips.
tell you something. Do you think anyone at Disney would know that Shannon Sharp should interview Cat Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They don't. They don't actually know what people want anymore. And if I'm, what's the viewership? Did you see?
41 million in 7 days.
41 million in 7 days. Okay. That's on YouTube.
Yeah, just YouTube.
And that's not the clips on TikTok.
That's not the clips.
Clips a billion.
This is the 2 hour and 46 minute episode. It's the most watched podcast in the history of mankind right now.
That's Shannon Sharp, who is what, a 50-some-year-old? 56-year-old ex-football player. And Cat Williams, what, a B-rated comic?
I mean, that's probably generous.
Yeah. See?
Like, he's not selling out arenas.
No, he did at one point.
At one point, but
he was
not
big.
anymore. He might now.
Yeah, he might now. and so the point is that I don't think the gatekeepers of the entertainment industry even know what consumers want, and they're not giving the consumers what they want. They're just not. And so like if I'm a TV exec right now, I'm signing Aaron Rodgers to a 50-year deal.
Yeah.
I want him hosting the 6 p.m. news, and he just berates everything on the news. It'd be amazing. He should have a show. If I'm Fox News, you want a Tucker Carlson replacement? You get Aaron Rodgers. You know why? I'm watching that show.
Yeah.
You're getting me to watch that show on Fox News just because it's like, fuck it, it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think executives don't get it because you can just open up TikTok and see what
people want.
What people want.
We want WWF.
I mean, it's Ocho Cinco and Uncle Sharp, Shannon Sharp.
Yeah.
Their clips are the funniest things on the internet for me.
Shannon Sharp just arguably is top 5 media personality on earth.
I mean, did you do your homework and listen to some of his clips?
On the Cat Williams clips?
No, the Shannon Sharp Ocho Cinco.
No.
Because I actually think that's better. Because,
Okay.
I mean, Cat Williams just, is just talking crazy and dissing every A-list celebrity. But Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco, the things they talk about are just like their personal lives.
Yeah, it's just funny.
And
But that's to your point. We are at a point in media, and this podcast is a reflection of it, that people want to build a relationship with a creator and get to know them and dive all in on them. Mm-hmm. And that is the thing that like if for example, if you went, on the evening news, they're talking about everything but themselves. So what happens is you're like questioning them, like, why is this person What makes them the authority on this topic?
And why is it all buttoned up?
And I think if you give context to it, like where people are getting their news from are not the traditional sources anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's sports news, that's financial news, that's, world politics. You're getting it from fragmented places, but the viewerships are real. Like Shannon Sharp's Cat William interview with 40 million viewers. That's more than fucking...
Check how many subs the Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco show have, because I think it's only been around like 4 months.
Yeah. So, all this to be said that there's an enormous opportunity in content. I've never been more excited to be in the content business because it just shows at any moment you could break out and you could build an audience that you could never imagine. So it's fucking exciting.
Nightcap, right? That's the show? It has 734,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's been on like a handful of months.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The media landscape is changing faster than if it wasn't for live sports, which I think is going to get jacked by all the streamers anyways in due time because they're the only ones that can afford it. You got like Shannon Sharp should get 4 hours on Fox. 4 hours. Let do whatever the fuck he wants. Literally, imagine if it's 6 p.m., you go home, you grab your beer. It's Shannon Sharp and his homies just bullshitting.
Just give Shannon Ocho.
It's like Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's at the wrong fucking time. He should be at 6 p.m. prime time.
Right.
Like when you come home, I want to watch Pat McAfee and the boys just talking shit.
Yeah. No.
All right. That's enough on that. We'll move on. Okay. Ecuador is facing some insane footage is coming out of Ecuador.
Yeah.
At first, I thought it was drug cartels kidnapping and like causing all this chaos. It's actually the opposite.
No. So you got to rewind because now the citizens are taking arms.
Yeah.
But
the first
24 hours ago,
it was the cartels.
So the head of a gang leader, one of the big cartels in Ecuador, disappeared, and everyone assumes the government intervened and either have him hostage or whatever, or in prison. So the cartel went nuts yesterday.
Yep.
They started storming prisons. They stormed live state TV. Wow. And had everyone hostage on TV. So if you were watching TV in Ecuador,
you saw this.
You saw like the cartel have all these people on the ground. They stormed a university. They were taking hostages at the university. They were executing people across all these different venues. And then now the military's in the streets. Now the Ecuador citizens have taken up arms and they're trying to fight back.
Yeah.
So it's complete chaos.
I think this idea of citizen military is very underrated for 2024. I think there are so many people, so many societies, so many things happening where people are getting empowered and they're like, fuck this. I'm done with this.
So I think in the US, it's a lot of talk. You don't really see it.
I mean, they took the Capitol. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's the Capitol.
Right.
I'm telling you, you wait till this election.
Someone's storming something.
Everyone's storming everything. It's going to be fucking Stormy Daniels up in this bitch. The amount of, they've lost it. Everyone is fed up. I think COVID showed you how precious life is. And if it's not the way you want it, you're going to go change it. And I think you're seeing this happen. Like even with the Palestinian protests, people are protesting. People are, the farmers in Germany, I don't know if you've been following that. The farmers are revolting, blocking highways,
natural
freeways.
Gas is too much or what?
No, I think it was just like the way the government has been treating the entire agricultural sector. So it's like you're seeing these things. And then you take like cartels and the way they've been treating their citizens in these countries and the way the country's being run. People are fed up. And what happened in Argentina is a really great example of like who they chose to elect. They chose to elect the person that's going to burn the shit down. And I think generally speaking, when you think about instability globally, these are some of the risks that are not being like taken into consideration, that like there are a lot of people that are fed up.
Yeah, I think 2016 when Trump got elected was just the bat signal.
Yeah, he opened up what's possible.
Yeah, he basically opened up like you have this
He's like a Bitcoin ETF.
portion of the country that feels left out,
Yeah,
and they went with the craziest option.
yeah.
I think even I don't want to like butcher this, but right before we start recording, something's happening in Poland with the government.
Yeah.
They stormed the parliament
Wow.
and took like the politicians hostage.
Jeez, I have a lot of
I might be
have a lot of
butchering
customers
this.
there, so I hope not.
But something's happening in Poland. I could have butchered
Yeah, but I'm
that
saying like
completely,
Europe is in like distress.
Europe's in shambles because
Yeah.
the economies suck
Yeah,
and there's high unemployment.
and so people are pissed.
And this has been happening for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Like youth unemployment in Greece, Spain.
Yeah.
This isn't new. Those
Yeah.
people are just older now.
yeah,
They're older and broke.
yeah, and now they're pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you're 25 and you're living with your parents,
You're just like
you're
whatever.
like, whatever. But now you're probably 42,
Yeah.
married with kids, and you still have no money.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really really interesting dynamic that's happening.
I think
global.
Europe is the most, Central America and South America for sure from a violence perspective, but from a societal perspective, I think you're going to see the most instability in Europe because that dynamic I said, the youth unemployment's been going on for 20 plus years. They're
Yeah.
old now
Yeah,
and they're still broke.
yeah.
And you have immigration that they're not happy about.
No. Yeah, they're like, and I actually think, I think we were talking about one of our group chats, we were talking about how important the economy is. Immigration, I think, is the global number 2 issue behind the financial stability. Like there is a video that went viral yesterday of a middle school or a high school in New York that got used to help let migrants sleep the night because there was nowhere else to put
Yep.
them, and they shut down the school for the day. That clip could get basically any opposing party elected. Like if you're the local politician running against whoever's district that is, it's an easy sell.
So it's interesting that both they're I don't know why what's a comptroller, COMP, city
whatever. Yeah.
politician, and the Republican politician both said this was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see Fetterman, which is the
Pittsburgh, or
Pennsylvania senator, he basically has changed his thoughts on immigration. I think everyone has now.
I think objectively, if you hear that, you're like, we're going to send U.S. kids to not be in school to house 2,000 illegal immigrants.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Crazy. You tell that to
I don't think you can. I think that's similar to. I think you're getting 70% approval in America.
Yeah. So
I don't think you'll get 90. You'll get 70.
Yeah. There's always. I saw people going on the other side. It goes, how inhumane is that? How inhumane is that the kids don't get to go to school? You know how many people rely on food at school?
Yeah, of course.
I think the illegal immigration problem globally is so big that it could be the thing that actually topples even the economy, because if it starts, like, it's clearly a problem in like certain cities, like New York and Chicago are feeling it the most. I think
So in New York, they're just dropping them off.
I've seen it.
Because
I've seen,
in person?
yes, I've seen
Because
groups
New York
of
doesn't border any country.
No.
It's water and
Yeah.
American states.
Yes. I've seen them just like gathered around and waiting. Yeah, it's wild. All right. Here's a really interesting thing. Did you know that in 2023, US produced the most oil that it's ever produced? And if you talk about like one of the biggest concerns about national security is always been about independence when it comes to oil.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2024, they're expecting continue to keep pushing out the heavy level of production of oil. But like, what's interesting is it's not something that's actually being spoken about.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because the current administration feels like it's against like their green policy, that like they've quietly gone to all the oil output, producers and being like, just pump, go, go, go.
The U.S. has been a net exporter of oil for a while.
Yeah. But I'm saying the fact that we were record in 2023, that kind of caught me off surprise because like, and I think we're producing more oil than anyone in the world, if I'm correct. I think they've just gone berserk in terms of like what, maybe you can look that up, Josh, see if who's the biggest oil producers in the world. I don't think
that's right.
Because from what I'm hearing is that like, there's so much more opportunity on oil production in America. They've always said that. And obviously the environmental issues have shut it down. But if we really want foreign oil independence, why don't we just pump and be done with this?
That's an argument a lot of people make.
Yeah.
Breaking news, because we talk about football. Nick Saban's retiring.
Wow.
Nick Saban's the head coach of Alabama. It's won 7 national titles. He's the greatest college football coach.
How old is he?
I don't know. But I'm kind of blown away.
Look it up. He's retiring and coming to USC.
Hope so.
No one retires. These people, he looks great.
He's on the Pat McAfee Show too.
Is he?
Every Monday.
So this guy's just
72 years old.
72. Wow, he's young. He could easily coach for another decade.
Yeah. And Pete Carroll got fired today.
Wow.
He's 71. They don't like the 70s, huh?
Maybe they're like...
It's like anti-U.S. presidents.
Yeah, get these geriatrics out of here. Nick Saban could run for, what, president?
Governor of Alabama, for sure he'd win.
I'd vote for him for president. You won 7 titles.
He's a great leader.
Yeah. If Nick Saban ran for president, he's winning as a Republican.
I don't know if anyone can beat Trump on the Republican side. Maybe if Trump was on the ballot.
No, if Trump wasn't on the ballot.
Yeah.
Well, on the ballot. I'd vote Nick Saban.
You said he's 71 or 72? So if he's 76, right on par with the rest of the candidates.
Yeah. But he's fresh off, like still being a winner. We gotta go right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, action-packed episode. Had a incredible conversation with our good friend Aaron Rodgers. And now we're going to do some shout-outs. First one is from Prucker J. A huge 28th birthday shout-out to my Gudu, a.k.a. Abi. Can't wait to get faded and jinged up all weekend with you in Battery Park City, my boy. Also, it's a shame that All In Pod was your #1 podcast of the year. Please stop listening to ball sacks and chow mein tapatio shout out their garbage opinions every week. Group chat is clearly way better. Love you, buddy. Keep tanning your thighs. They look amazing. Okay. A lot of inside baseball on that one. Next one, from Maricela to Brandon. Wishing you the happiest birthday, Lovey. Excited to celebrate with you. Recap today's GCP episode and have some birthday cake. Te amo, mi amor. Here's to many more birthdays together. Happy birthday, Brandon. Next is from Neb Gurma. I want to shout out my girlfriend, Michelle, and longtime listener of the podcast. Thank you for always encouraging me to go out and do bigger and better things. All right. That's amazing. Well, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We will see you back here on Sunday.
You're flying. Are you?
I'm here Sunday night.
Okay.
I can record and then I'm gone for a while.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do a phone in live from Europe.
Yeah, Ian did it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your travels or no?
Sure, I could talk about it. I have a very action-packed trip.
Yep.
I'm doing 12 hours in New York, then to London for 12 hours, then to Paris, a few days, then Milan.
Very rich.
Well, in
you just
January,
named 4 of the richest cities in the world.
By the way, very cheap right now because no one's there. Like the hotels in Paris are so cheap right now.
So you're red-eyeing and then leaving that night?
So I land in New York at 6:30 in the morning, and then I'm trying to hop on a 11:30 to London, and then the next night leave to Paris.
All right.
All right. See you guys.